Welcome back. Let's talk about that San Andreas fault. Famous fault line along a transform boundary, side-by-side grinding motion, that we now know and love in California. It's the cause for a great number of those earthquakes that occur in California. But how did it get there? And also, why is it important? So the San Andreas Fault formation is a byproduct of the Farallon Plate. Go figure. So the Farallon Plate, as it was being pushed under and subducted the North American Plate, initially dipped down. And because it dipped down, kind of fragmented into a couple of different plates, we went from a full convergent boundary to having now part of a transform boundary, and then even further on a bit of a longer transform boundary. So how did we get there? So before the Eocene, the entire Pacific coast was a convergent boundary. Right? So the whole thing convergent boundary. As the North American Plate again overrode the Pacific Farallon Ridge, the divergent boundary, its margin changed from a convergent boundary to a transform boundary. So as soon as North America kind of overrode this part here, then it switched from a convergent boundary to a transform boundary. So in Southern California, two triple junctions formed. So this is the triple junction between three plates: the Pacific Plate, what is now the Juan de Fuca Plate, and the North American Plate. And then same thing here: Pacific Plate, Cocos Plate, North American Plate. And between these two triple junctions is where the transform boundary kind of occurred. So we still have convergence here, but we have this side-by-side grinding motion of the Pacific Plate with the North American Plate. As North America continued further to the west, and as everything else continued further to the east, further overriding of the ridge extended the San Andreas Fault. Now, as that happened, only really two small remnants of the Farallon Plate exist. Again, the Juan de Fuca and the Cocos. But again, let me go back. So as North America further went this way, it's going to override all of this. So instead of this being a transform boundary, we're going to have a much broader, much broader transform boundary that we kind of see today. So this is kind of more of a current look. Yeah, so the San Andreas Fault along this transform boundary runs from Northern California past San Francisco through Central California, Los Angeles, and San Diego over here, all the way down. That's what helped to split Baja, Mexico, in this region here, where Rocky Point, what's it called? Puerto Penasco is down here as well, and this opened up again because of this boundary, this transform boundary. So let's take a look at how that occurred. Let me put me back here. So keep an eye on this area. You can still see the outline of the Farallon Plate here. So this area is still the Farallon Plate. As North America overrides it, it disappears. So we get the triple point here. So now we have a little bit of a transform boundary. And then continuing on, now we have this from here to here, so you can see some different things are happening. This is where Baja, Mexico kind of splits from mainland Mexico, and we get this rift occurring here. Again, for all the way from this triple point down to here, so the San Andreas all the way through here. We see the small but mighty Juan de Fuca. We see the Cocos Plate here. Now, the formation of the San Andreas is actually very important, especially here in this part of Arizona, in the Phoenix area, Yuma area, this whole central western portion, all the way down into Tucson, this whole central western portion of Arizona looks the way it does, thanks in part to the San Andreas. In fact, keep an eyeball on what's going on in Arizona and the whole Southwest. When this occurs, things start to look a little bit different. You see all these wavy ridges, these kind of up and down northernly facing wavy ridges. So from kind of Nevada area all the way down. So this particular terrain, which we'll talk about next, is thanks to the movement along the San Andreas once that occurred, once that boundary changed from convergent to a transform boundary. And this region where we see this kind of different geology due to the San Andreas fault movement is called the Basin and Range Province, which we'll talk about in just a second when we come back.